Welcome to the LEP Collaborative Podcast, the show where licensed educational psychologists, school psychs, and educational professionals come together to share stories, swap strategies, and sprinkle a little fun into our professional journeys. I'm your host, Bethany Zoeller, and in every episode, we'll dive into candid conversations, expert insights, and maybe a few surprises. Let's connect, learn, and grow collaboratively. All right. Well, welcome back to the LEP Collaborative Podcast. I am super excited to have my buddy Erin Crawford here today from Empowered Psychological Services in San Rafael, California. How are you, Erin?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, this is a redo for me. Okay. I won't go too far in depth into why this is a redo, but once upon a time, I was on another podcast. Will not be named. And in said podcast, I had arranged for you to come on and talk, and then I broke up with my podcast partner. And so I didn't get to do it. So I've been like waiting like a year for
We had a
this,
false alarm.
right? Been waiting for this moment, Erin. Okay. But we've known each other a while now.
Feels like a long time.
It
Yeah.
feels like a while now, and so I just wanted to kind of have a conversation and share some information about what you do and what you use in your practice so that people that are listening in could be like, oh, that's something I never thought of before. So let me tell you the plan for the day. I would love for us to talk about tech. It's a very broad and general term, but like tech and how we use it in our practices, and how it like makes things better or maybe makes things more difficult depending on what. And then I would love for us to chat a little bit about the LEP Summit that we are both a part of this summer. And then I have a fast question round for you.
Okay. I'm ready. Let's do
Okay.
it.
Sound okay? Okay. Well, like tell me about what you use tech like in your practice. How do you play with technology in your practice?
Yeah. When I think about tech, I don't know if I would call myself tech savvy, but I think you have to be living under a rock to not be using technology in your life somehow. And in a professional capacity, I think about technology that I use kind of in two buckets. One is just the technology tools I use to run my business, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. Things like QuickBooks kind of keeps your accounting and records kind of organized and accessible. I am not good at doing that on my own, so I would be lost without my QuickBooks. Things like DocuSign.
Have
When
you
I
always done QuickBooks? Like out the
I've always
gate,
done
you went,
QuickBooks.
okay. Because when I started, I think I actually started with Excel. It's been
I
a
did
while.
well. I think I used Excel for a month and then I felt overwhelmed. And my
Okay.
husband said, "Here is your QuickBooks account. Here is your login."
Okay, and this is another thing I want to point out. Okay, is I feel like you got a cheat code and that you married somebody that's a business major, right? Isn't he like,
I did. I am
right.
the first to admit that I have zero business background. And, in having conversations with working LEPs, or as we call them, LEP curious folks,
Mhm.
a big hurdle mentally, emotionally is that we are not trained, most of us, in business. I had no training in business. So I think that is a huge, it's really intimidating, and a reason that some people, I think, have fear or reluctance to go out of the schools
Sure.
and start a business. So yes, I was very fortunate that my husband went to a little business school you may have heard of. It's called Harvard.
Ugh.
And
Now, you know what? Let me think.
so he has
Yeah, so
been
you're
in,
totally have a
uh,
cheat right here, right? Like who else is like, oh, I'm going to talk to my business person from Harvard about how to run my. Okay, so this is good. So
yes,
you have a good
I
source of information.
I am cheating. And
Yeah.
not only did he go to Harvard Business School, he also started his own company. So I think that was 11 years ago. So I definitely have an inside scoop on the
A
pitfalls, what he
significant
needs.
business asset at your disposal.
Yes. And he has
Okay, and so
been,
he's Mr. QuickBooks. QuickBooks all the
he
way.
is Mr. QuickBooks. And I think that something I realized quickly, I'm a very like, do it myself, do it my way, probably not the most efficient way. But some really great advice he gave me is your time is money. So if I'm spending time on administrative tasks like accounting, invoicing, all of those things, that's taking time away from when I could be working with clients. So time is money, time is money. I just remind myself of that. So any tool you can use to make your running your business more efficient, do it.
Okay.
So I've taken that kind of perspective with a lot of the decisions I've made. And I know some of our colleagues have thought, oh, should I use a virtual assistant or things like that? If it saves you time, your time is your money. We're a services business. So do it. So
Yeah.
QuickBooks and DocuSign were the first on the list of, do I really need this? It's just an additional expense. And my husband said, yes. You don't want to waste your time on things that software or technology can help you with.
What all do you use DocuSign? Are you using it for like all your intake paperwork? How does it fit in your practice?
I use DocuSign mainly for consents.
Okay.
So whether I'm working with a private client, I send my consent paperwork via DocuSign. And when I support school districts, like if I do contract work for a school, it is really hard when you're not on site every day to get paper back.
Amen.
So, and especially if it's younger students, you try the whole put it in the backpack method, it gets lost, you try again. It's not efficient, and you're asking for opportunities for materials to get lost. So, everyone has a phone. It's so much easier, and I have a much better success rate of getting consents signed if I email them directly to a parent. Click, click, click. It's very
Yeah.
easy. All you need is the checkbox that says I consent, the signature, and the date, and boom. So that I feel like is the most efficient way to get consent form signed.
Okay. So like for me, I do most of that through my EHR. Did you ever go electronic health records database?
I have not done the EHR route. It seemed like folks that offer counseling that makes a lot more sense for, and I don't currently offer counseling. So I kind of in my mind thought if and when that becomes part of my practice, I would explore it, but I haven't yet.
Yeah.
So I don't use it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I started with simple practice, which I think is one that a lot of people start with, and maybe continue to have. But for me, I had to switch because once you brought other people in, it became really expensive. Like each additional
Yeah.
person was, I'm like hiring somebody part time, and they're only going to see two or three clients, and yet I'm paying, another $100 a month for them to have it. So, but that's okay. So you use DocuSign like I use my EHR. That makes sense. Okay.
Yes.
That's kind of the nitty-gritty day to day, or are there other ones that you use just for like
I
day-to-day
think
business things?
those are probably my biggest, like I use those almost daily. And I have to remind myself, like if I'm sitting at home on the couch watching TV, to go into my QuickBooks and assign expenses because they get put into different buckets for, your tax purposes. So every few days, I'll remind myself, okay, I got to go do some accounting in QuickBooks because the charges are already there, but you have to categorize them. And sometimes QuickBooks, you can make a rule. It knows, okay, how much stuff do we buy from Pearson? It knows where to put the
A
Pearson
lot.
materials or MHS. But some of the things, it doesn't know what bucket to put it in. So every once in a while, I need to just say, okay, well, this was this is retirement, this is insurance, this is like I just did fingerprinting for a contract. This is for part of a contract fee, things like that.
Awesome. Okay. And then that is like the perfect segue into, as we mentioned, Pearson. What
Pearson.
about tech for your assessment practices? Like what's your go-to there?
I use tech as much as possible. I think, like I said, paper forms of any kind is just, you're just asking for people to lose them.
Hmm.
So any rating scale, we should not be sending paper rating scales home with children. Send them electronically.
Hmm.
Everyone has a smartphone, everyone has a computer. It's easier to complete on a smartphone or an iPad or computer. There's a higher chance you're going to get that back if you send a link versus a piece of paper. So that is all my rating scales, whether that's the BASC, whether that's the brief, Connors, ASR, like all of them. Um, there are some more obscure ones that don't have digital versions, but if there is a digital version, I'm always using that.
Okay.
Um, I use Google Forms a lot. So I have set up my health and developmental histories in a Google form. And teacher input I solicit via a Google form. And one trick that is a huge time saver, and people who are listening to this are going to say, how do I do this? And my answer is, I don't remember how I did it. But smart people will tell you how to do this, or you could probably Google it. You can make an extension on a Google form. So if you click, I think it's like the top right hand corner of the Google form, you can link the responses and turn them into an Excel spreadsheet,
Yes, there is a button for that.
which is super time saver because I have my responses in my Google form for things like, let's say, health and developmental history. Then I click turn these Google form responses into a Google Sheet. So it's an
Mhm.
Excel spreadsheet, and it lays out the information in a nice organized way where the top of a column is the question, and then obviously the cell below is what the response was. I can then take that information, copy paste it, and use our favorite new tool, AI, to create a summary. So what usually, before these tech tools and before AI would take me, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes to an hour to try to summarize background information and health and developmental history information. It's literally click to turn it into a Google Sheet, copy paste, throw it into AI. Obviously, all of the students' PHI either needs to be removed or you need to use a HIPAA compliant AI tool like Bastion. But you've just saved yourself 30 to 40 minutes.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. You know, the silly thing that I just learned about Google Forms that like I didn't know up until this point is that I could turn on notifications for when the form gets filled out. I didn't
That's
know you could
helpful.
do that. I was like, I've always been like, I have to check in. Did anybody fill it in? Did anybody fill it? And then I noticed there was like three little dots. And I'm like, what happens when I click that? And then it's like, oh, be informed when a response is. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where has this been my whole life?
That is
Um,
helpful. And
yeah.
some people with Google Forms like to receive a copy of their answers, which I'd say that doesn't happen all the time, but I also have it set up where once you input your responses, you're automatically emailed a copy of your
A good
responses.
idea. I don't think I have that turned on mine. I'm
Some
gonna,
people want it, so I turned it on.
yeah. Okay. Okay. And then we touched, oh, are you an iPad gal? Like, are you doing like Q Interactive or the WJ on the iPad, any of that stuff?
I have been doing Q Interactive cognitive assessments since I started my practice. I have not yet purchased the WJ. I think I'm going to soon because I'm running out of WJ4 protocols. I need to switch over. Uh, anytime I can administer an assessment virtually,
Mhm.
like using a technology tool, because oftentimes it does the scoring for you. Again, saving time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. And then the other one that I know uh, was sort of newly introduced to you was Nova Psych and Nova Note. How are you usually, what are they and how do you use them in your practice?
So a brilliant LEP I know named Bethany introduced me to this tool, which I find very helpful. So anytime I am conducting an interview or trying to gather, verbal responses in an assessment, my prior practice was just typing notes as fast as humanly possible. That makes your hand tired and it's not very efficient. And if you have a kid who talks fast, it's really hard to write and type everything they say. So this tool has been really helpful in, instead of typing away, just listening to a student's responses and getting to engage with them because it's being recorded. And what's cool about the recording is you get a transcript if you're really interested in the specific responses. And AI also makes like a lovely summary. So you kind of have your pick of, do you want a summary or do you want the actual transcript of what was said? And it has been super helpful. I've still been playing around with it. I've had a lot of success if I'm in the same room
Yeah.
with an assessee. I realized it wasn't really helpful when I tried to have it record and transcribe a virtual meeting.
Okay. I
It
haven't
got
tried that.
it got very confused. It thought there was four speakers. In
Oh,
fact, there was just me and the other person. So if you look in the transcript, it said speaker A, speaker B, speaker C, speaker D, and I said, wait, what? There was only two people on this call, and it did not do a very consistent job of recording the other person's responses. So I
Okay.
don't think it's super helpful for that. But if you're in the same like space as someone, or I've
Yeah.
tried, like if I have a family reach out with questions about assessments, I'll take the phone call on my phone and turn it on speakerphone, and then it captures what they say.
Oh, okay. I'll have to try that. I haven't done it that way. I have been using it for maybe a year now, but always for my in-person interviews and I have it in my informed consent before anybody like yells at me and make sure whatever. It is in my informed consent that I use AI for a whole lot of different reasons, and one of them is utilizing this platform. But I love it for amygdala, like as and especially like an adolescent adult MIGDAS where I'm just kind of doing that whole
Yes.
clinical interview. Oh my gosh, it's so good because I want to be able to engage. And when I am having to stop and take notes so that I remember the thing to later write, I mean, I lose information, right?
Yeah, you
Um,
lose the thread.
yeah. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm glad that that has been helpful for you. The Nova Psych side of things, because they're the same platform, just like two different branches. I haven't played with quite as much, but I have been having I do a lot of adult assessment. So I have everybody fill out like a GAD 7 and a PH, whatever, the anxiety and depression screeners. And I have them do it on that. Like they'll come in and I'll just kind of hand them an iPad and it's like ready to go and they click it and then it's already pre-scored and everything. But I have done a couple of the questionnaires. Like I just tried a new ADHD one this last week and I'm like, oh, that was really good information. So
Hmm.
there's 9 million in there. Like I don't know where these rating scales came from, but there's some pretty cool ones in there too.
Yeah, I want to check out more. I feel like they're lesser known, so people don't really snoop around in there, but I think it sounds like there's some things worth exploring and
Which
trying.
can be very helpful, like on an IEE, where they threw everything at the person,
Yep.
plus,
Hmm.
and I'm like, what in the world is left? And sometimes I'll go on there. And I mean, I still want to use ones that people are familiar with because, you know, that's important as well. But getting new information sources is a good way to go. Okay.
Yes, I feel like if you do IEEs, you end up having a really extensive testing library because when a student has had every test under the sun, you're like, a unit? What's left?
Yeah.
So I have so many test kits that I probably have only used a handful of times in those situations where they've given everything else.
Which is when I will say I'm not a huge, you are definitely more tech savvy with the iPads. I still like yell at mine every time I try to turn it on because I have to like reset everything every time. I don't know what it is about Q Interactive. It's like I will go in and want to start it and then it just does a little spirally thing and I have to like shut down my iPad pretty much every time to get it to like
Yes,
come back to life.
it It is not the best product. And I build in an extra 20 to 30 minutes before I'm expecting a client to do what you just described. I expect it to not work. So I build in cushion time to restart, power down, power on, log in, because it always has issues. So I'm like a over planner. I'd rather buffer time to deal with that and troubleshoot than have the kid walking through the door and it's not working.
I am the latter that you just talked about. That's my experience and my practice is that they come in and then I'm like, why isn't this working? And then sometimes the kid can figure it out because they're like more tech savvy. No, but yeah,
True.
I don't use it very often, but I've had to lately, and I just keep going. What? What am I? Why isn't it? Why can't it just do what it's supposed to
I
do? It's
know.
like those, you have one job.
It has a lot of issues.
But when it does work, or once you get it to work, it will work. But once you like get all of the things in a row, I will say, I love that it pops up with the scaled scores like as you're doing the test. And it's like, okay, well, maybe I want to follow up with this as you're doing
It's
it.
very helpful.
Yeah,
It's very
that's
helpful. Yeah. So I
fantastic.
usually have my laptop open with, you can see as you're going through what the standard scores are. And just like you said, it helps me say, oh, that was kind of lower. Maybe I should do like sometimes I'll bust out my Whisk 5 interactive, and follow up with a subtest if they scored lower, just to get more information about kind of the constructs that were being measured. Another tech tool that I really like and kids love is Nesplora, which is a
Oh, yeah.
continuous performance task on virtual reality. So it's through the Oculus Meta VR glasses, which are kind of expensive.
Oh my
Yes.
God.
Yes.
I
You
just gave
would
it, so it's
be,
right next to me.
it's fun.
Yeah.
It's it's really interesting. I have a decent sized office and lots of stuff in it with, books and games and test kits, and kids always see the glasses. No matter, even if I'm not even doing an ADHD assessment, they'll see the virtual reality glasses and say, "What are those? Can we use those? I want to use those." Their kids are so drawn to it
Yep.
that I kind of use it as my like carrot. If we're doing some not as fun activities, it's like, well, if we finish this, we can do the virtual reality test. And kids are obsessed with it.
Do they
So
ever get disappointed though about 5 minutes in?
I have not had that. I have
Okay.
had comments like the kids are very pixelated, like the quality of the visual is not up to par, but kids really like it.
Oh,
And
see, mine, I tend to have, they're so about it, right? But it's a sustained attention task, right? And so
yeah,
then they're like, like, when is it over? I'm like, I don't know. When you're done, you know? And I love that it measures movement because it's always like I'll have this kid that's like trying to sit upside down while they're doing it, and it's like excessive motor movement. And I'm like, yep, that's for sure.
yeah, that's
You-
a fun one. And
Have you done the
I think
adults, the
I have
aquarium?
not done. Oh, that's not true. I did it once. I had a college age student, so I did the aquarium, and
The
it was
It's
cool.
cuter.
Yeah.
The aquarium is much cuter. I kind of wish that they gave the kid version a non sitting in the classroom. I get why
Mm,
they do it. It simulates the kid sitting in the classroom, but like in the classroom, we're not usually just pushing the button when we hear whatever the word is that we have to hear. Um,
sure.
so I'm like, okay, but I do get a kick out of it, like when the kid like coughs or sneezes behind the person and they're always like, whoa, what was
Yeah,
that?
or psst,
Yeah.
that's always a good one. Like, what? Where'd that come from?
Yeah. It's pretty
Um,
fun to watch them do the VR.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a good tool. And the other continuous performance tasks, type tests that I've tried are a lot more painful and boring.
That's
So
the best part.
I'm a fan. Yeah, and I think the other way that I use AI, besides, like summaries and things like that, is making your reports more readable, more neuroaffirming. If you want to change the tone, if you want to adjust the report so a parent, if they have their own learning difficulties or their reading level is at a certain place, like the goal is to provide information to help the parties involved, the parents, the school staff. So that is a great way to adapt reports so for different purposes. I found that really helpful. And I think the other way that I use AI is just with communication assistance. If I'm trying to draft an email that I either want to sound warm and supportive or professional, or I'm trying to explain something that, we in the field have said a million times. So it's, like second nature to us. But for the first time going through this, a family might not understand what a term
Oops,
means. So
sorry, my phone.
it,
Sorry. Keep
I
going.
just, I find it helpful to, especially with email communications, because a lot of things can be misunderstood or misinterpreted. And I think in real life, I'm a direct communicator. And sometimes being a direct communicator can come across in an email as kind of harsh or rude.
Okay.
So when I'm trying to communicate something in, either a neutral or a warm tone, I call my robot and say, can you rewrite this in, this manner? Because I think sometimes I'm trying to do things quickly and it can come off as short or rude. And that's not the impression I want to give. But if you can't see my face and hear my tone of voice, you miss those cues. So I, a lot of times, just say, I use Claude when there's not PHI involved, like, hey, Claude, this is an email I'm trying to send. Can you rewrite it for me in a professional manner or in a supportive tone or whatever? I think that could be really helpful with like tweaking email communications.
Is Claude specific to that purpose? Is that what it's all about? Is like correspondence? I've never used that platform.
No, it's just, from what I understand, again, this is my husband and his tech company and his head of product has decided that Claude is, at least right now, winning the AI race.
Oh.
Um, I think ChatGPT was initially the big dog because they were the first, and Claude has since, I think, caught up in just the quality of responses. And what is nice, I've noticed about Claude versus ChatGPT is it can follow a thread. So even when I am asking questions of Claude that are unrelated to prior questions, like for the email example, please explain to this parent the difference between a school-based assessment and a private assessment. Sure,
Mhm.
I could say that on a phone call, or I could just let Claude save me time and draft a nice response as to the differences. If I then ask Claude to do something completely different, please ask this family to check their email to see if they received the documents I sent to move forward with an assessment. Claude connects the threads, even if you don't tell it to, which ChatGPT doesn't necessarily do that. It takes kind of every statement and answer as like its own separate topic.
Mhm.
I've noticed that Claude, like kind of amazingly, will thread through the components of everything you've asked, which is really kind of interesting. And
Yeah.
I have noticed that ChatGPT doesn't really do that. Maybe you can tell it to do that, but default it doesn't.
Right.
Um, and I really I like using Claude. I've tried them both. I've used the paid versions of both, and I'm lately leaning more towards Claude.
Okay, I'm gonna have to try it. I've never done Claude. I've heard of it, but I've never done that one. The one that it comes because I have a Google Workspace through my whatever with the BAI.
Gemini,
So Gemini, but I haven't been in love with Gemini. Like, I don't know what it
it's
is.
okay.
It's okay, but
It's
it's not,
okay.
I don't know. I tend to use Bastion just because it's my platform that I use for my report writing. So I'll have it like craft a response or whatever. But you're right, like it definitely is not going to integrate like every one of chats is that's all that it is, and it
Separate.
doesn't remember anything outside of that. So no,
Hmm.
that's cool. Okay, Claude. This sounds
Yeah.
fancy. I'm gonna
Yeah, or like
go
marketing
talk to the bot.
materials. I've said, hey, Claude, can you make me a flyer talking about how the summertime is a great time for kids to get an assessment because they don't have to miss school? Like, and it creates like a nice flyer.
Oh, that's so
It's
cool.
a fun tool for different uses.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for that. I want to transition into another exciting topic, which is it has a really long title because it's
The
Misty
summer
Bonta's.
summit,
Yes, but it's like get psyched because Misty Bonta is allowing us to go under her amazing umbrella of get psyched. And then we are five minds because there's five of us. Anyways, but it's like a really long title. Maybe next year if we should think about that. Us all.
I'm just calling it the summer summit.
Summer Summit for
The summer
educational
summit.
psychologists or
Yeah,
LEP curious are also
I
invited.
like that. I like that.
Um, what are you like? Tell like people who don't know and don't get to hang out with us, which sorry, they should because we're a lot of fun. Um, how did this come about?
I think all of us, like many LEPs, practicing LEPs or LEP curious folks, we sort of ventured out into this world of private practice on our own with a million questions and a lot of anxiety. And there's no tool book. I think we all just sort of figured things out on our own. Things like, do I need QuickBooks? Do I need a lawyer to help me either write or correct contracts? Do I need office space? How much do I spend on test kits? Can I borrow test kits? How far will just the Q Interactive startup kit get me?
Ah,
I think there's so many questions that come up when you're doing this work, and it stinks to be on your own and feel like you don't have people to ask these questions to. Like, what are you doing in this situation? How are you navigating IEEs? Do you have your own set of consent paperwork, or do you just do what the district does? Do you go with their rate? Do you come up with your own rate? What about sexual abuse and molestation
oh
insurance? Like
man, we could have a whole podcast on that subject. Maybe
there's
that's for
so
another
many, yeah, there's so many details, and emotionally it can be lonely. So I think we all find support and connection in this group, and we have our group of five, but we also have other groups of, Misty leads a monthly group, Liz Angoff leads a monthly group. So it builds community, which I think for us as individuals and human beings who have feelings appreciate support, validation. And a lot of times it's, this is what I'm thinking. Am I thinking about this correctly? Whether it's, a case consultation or instrument selection, there's just a lot of questions, and there's a lot of things we're doing for the first time that would feel a lot less scary if we could say, hey, how did you do this?
Yeah.
So I think, our friendship and, group was built out of those experiences and those feelings. And, every time we go on Facebook and see a new LEP ask the same questions we've all, you know,
Right.
had to struggle through on our own, we thought it would be helpful to share the knowledge, share the love, to talk to other folks who are doing this or are thinking about doing this, and just kind of make things less scary and difficult.
Yeah. I think we kind of came up with the topics with the idea of like what do we want to go to? Like what is a conference that, because I mean there are a lot of places you can get professional development from, right? And there are CEUs that have to be done. And but there isn't anything that is really targeted to people that are in our world. So it's like I can go and get, a great mental health related one. There's lots of those out there. And there are ones that will train me on how to do specific assessments or all those things. But like, is there one that talks about how to be in private practice and
No,
and what fits, like what, and that's a big thing, right? It's just like, am I actually allowed to do this? Because so much of what we do, I mean, it's an offshoot of our school psychology life. But like I work with grown-ups now. I mean, I would say like at least 50% of my population, probably more like 60, 70 now, is working with adults. And that is one that like when I started, I would have been absolutely not. Like that's not in my scope. I'm going to work with kids this whole time. And now I'm like, oh wait, I get to do this. And I can pull up the business and professions code and outline why I can do this. But I feel like with the community, we've got great Facebook groups and things like that, but there is something lacking in specific training for what we do and how we do it. And so I'm excited about that part. Are there any specific topics that we are going to be diving into during the summit that you are excited to either share about or learn about?
oh, I think, business basics is a huge one. Like some of the tools that we talked about earlier. Some folks, we didn't need a QuickBooks account when we worked as school psychologists. Probably didn't even know what that was. DocuSign, we didn't need. You didn't need your own test kits. You didn't need your own materials. You weren't negotiating office leases. You weren't either creating or modifying contracts. Like these are all brand new
Yeah.
skills
And your
that.
clients were handed to you, right? Like you didn't get a
Mhm.
choice in the matter. There is no,
Yep.
there's not like you will do this assessment. It's not a, hey, could you, or do you have time, or when would you like to schedule? It is,
That
it is.
is one nice thing. Although sometimes I feel like I just traded my flavor of anxiety of like, I can't say no, I'm overwhelmed and stressed out, to if a few days go by and I don't get any inbounds, I get freaked out like, oh no, no
Sure.
one's gonna ever
Yeah.
call me again.
It
Both are challenging.
definitely. Well, and I think that if you go into the world of psychology in general, don't you think the majority of us have some sort of anxiety disorder?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. But if you can fuel that to be productive, that's how I tell
Yes.
myself. That's my positive spin.
Use stress
Um,
versus distress. We've got you, it's
yes,
motivating. We're going to go do
yes.
things most of the
Yeah, I think
time.
business basics is a really helpful one. IEEs, that's a whole new world that we didn't do as psychologists, or if we did, it was the person on the other side of the table reading out their IEE.
Yeah.
Um, those are always seem to be different every single time. You're sometimes a contract is provided for you. Sometimes you come up with your own. Sometimes the district says this is the fee, take it or leave it. Sometimes they say, what would you like us to pay you?
Mhm.
Sometimes you need to get fingerprinted. Sometimes you don't. It seems like every district does things a little bit differently. So those pieces you kind of have to kind of adjust each time.
Yeah.
Obviously, the assessment principles are pretty similar. but the reports are different. We're considering the DSM, whereas previously we were just considering ed code. I think that's a really, IEEs are really great opportunity for LEPs, I think, because there's amazing, talented neuropsychologists out there who do amazing assessments, but they don't speak ed code.
Right.
So you can come up with a laundry list of DSM-5 diagnoses, but any of those may or may not qualify a student under California ed code. So I think districts are understanding more what we as LEPs have to offer because we speak both languages, and some of these private like clinical psychologists and neuropsychologists don't speak ed code. So, they could say this child has a diagnosis of autism, which may be a totally valid and supported diagnosis, but, as someone in the education field is okay, but is that
Is there
disability
educational impact?
impacting,
Yeah.
yeah, is there that impacting their access to their general education curriculum? So
Hmm.
that's where our minds go, whereas folks with other types of training don't necessarily know kind of how to take their private diagnoses frameworks and fit them into California ed code. And it leaves families, I think, confused. And sometimes, well, this report says they have all these things, autism and ADHD and GAD. So give me my IEP. But those things might not necessarily translate into qualifying criteria for special education. And I think it leaves parents can potentially confused or disappointed, thinking they're going to get one thing, but that's not really the case. So I think IEEs are a unique opportunity for us as LEPs. They can be stressful and contentious because most of the time the two sides are not on great terms. There's been a disagreement or lack of trust, and you kind of have to wade into those waters and be neutral, which can be very challenging. Obviously, parents are very passionate about their children and what their children need. Uh, so there can be uncomfortable
Yeah, for sure.
meetings. But I think they're a great opportunity for LEPs to kind of demonstrate their skills and knowledge.
Yeah, it's definitely one where I think we are uniquely the best candidate to be performing those assessments, right? It's like because we have to marry both worlds. Um, so okay, yeah. So if you're listening to this, you should totally come to the LEP Summit.
Do
Right?
it.
That's my thing. We're good. Okay.
That's our
We
plug.
That's our plug. You should come. It's gonna be fun. I have some rapid fire questions for you.
All
Are
right,
you ready?
fire away.
Okay. No thinking. You just share.
This feels like a Freudian test.
Right? How do you feel about your mother? No, just kidding. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Favorite tech tool in your practice?
Mm. Claude and I are getting very close these
Yeah,
days.
you and Claude. Sounds like it.
Hmm.
Getting rid of Bastion.
Yeah,
See
no
what you
PHI for Claude, but everything else.
do. Go-to stress reliever after a busy day.
Um, Exercise and then wine.
That's
And you
perfect
can't
pairing.
you can't do it in the opposite order because if I
No,
have wine, I'm not going to exercise.
no, no. Well, you could, but it would be kind of dangerous, right? Depending on how much wine has been taken. Okay.
Yeah.
One thing you wish you'd known when you started your practice.
Ooh. That it is okay to have imposter syndrome. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. That doesn't mean you're not totally capable of doing what you're doing, but that's part of the journey, and that's okay.
Okay. I love that. And I wish there was a secret like or a time frame, when it just goes away. And I used to work with a lot of graduate students, and I would always tell them like, yeah, no, it morphs. Maybe it doesn't happen quite as frequently as it did in the beginning, but it'll still hit you out of it, like and just be like, I am completely a fraud and don't know it. I feel
That
that.
is another way in which our friendship, our group is helpful because I think, in those situations where you have a complex case and you're just bouncing ideas off of another professional that you respect and they're coming to a similar conclusion, I feel like that diminishes your imposter syndrome feeling because you think, oh, these people are very skilled and I respect them and they're agreeing with my conclusions. And then you think,
Yeah.
okay, maybe
Yeah.
I'm not a total imposter,
And then,
just a little
just
bit.
having other people to bounce it off of too when you're like stuck, it's just like
Yeah.
this does not compute. What should I be thinking about? And it kind of help you get out of your head a little
The
bit there.
math isn't mathing. I need another
Yes.
brain.
Yes. Okay. Favorite, you're Bay Area-ish, right? Bay Area.
Hmm.
Favorite Bay Area spot. Like if I go to the Bay, where should I go?
That's so hard because the Bay Area is huge. So
Okay.
we're in the North Bay,
Okay.
which is like a bunch of Tesla driving, stand up paddleboard doing granola eating folk, my folk. But like we
Okay,
all
well, where's
parts of
the best place to eat for a granola loving
oh
person like you?
um well recently in my hometown, I grew up in San Rafael, and then after living a bunch of places, I'm now back in San Rafael. That's where my office is. It has a very eclectic food scene, but one place that recently got national attention, maybe international attention, was a Puerto Rican restaurant called Soul Food, SOL, not SOUL. Um, and it's been in San Rafael probably over 10 years, and it's expanded to other cities and towns within Marin. I think there's 3 or 4 locations now. The food isn't fantastic, but it just got super famous because Bad Bunny, who was the Super Bowl halftime
There
performer,
you
who is
go.
Puerto Rican, when he came to the Bay Area for his last concert, I think it was a few months ago, he went to this restaurant called Soul Food and, did an Instagram story. And now there's lines out the door.
How
It's world
funny.
famous. Yeah, which is fun because I'm excited for the restaurant. I'm sure they could use the business, but the locals have known about it for way longer.
Yeah. Well, Bad Bunny made it now very difficult to get into.
It is so delicious. It's funny. One of our other five minders, Rachel, came to my office maybe last year to borrow a test kit, and she drove like almost an hour, and it was around lunchtime. So I said, "Hey, let's grab something to eat before you drive back." And we went to Soul Food.
Nice. Fancy, fancy. All right. Well, now I know where I need to go when I
Yes,
come back. Well, Erin, thank you so much for letting me like finally get this out of my system. Now you can come back. We'll have you back. We can talk
I'll
about
come
other
back
things.
anytime.
Yeah, perfect. So thank you all for listening to the LEP Collaborative podcast. Yeah, I would just stay tuned for more chats, and we hope that you have learned from this conversation and have things that you can take away to make your life a little bit easier in the private practice world. All right, take care.